Hello, my dear students. Today we will be doing the reading of Lesson 3 Siddhartha Saves the Swan from your literature book. The main characters of the story are King Suddhodana, Queen Maya, Prince Siddhartha, and Prince Devadat, who is Prince Siddhartha's cousin, and a wise old man who predicts the future of Prince Siddhartha. Now, the picture on screen is a well known picture of Gautam Buddha. You all know who is Gautam Buddha, isn't it? Gautam Buddha is none other than Prince Siddhartha itself. At the age of 29, Prince Siddhartha left his home for helping people who were in need, in find of God, and to spread the message of God's love, compassion, and the way God wants all His people to live. So let us start the reading of the chapter now. Lesson 3 Siddhartha Saves the Swan. Long ago, near the great Himalayan mountains, there lived a king called Suddhodana and his wife, Queen Maya. They were just and kind rulers. So, these lines tell us the quality of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya, that they used to take a fair judgment and they were very kind to the people of his kingdom. One day, the Queen Maya gave birth to their first child, a baby boy. They called the baby Siddhartha. So, now they were blessed with the first child, and it was a boy, and the name of the boy was Siddhartha. The king and queen wanted their family and friends to see their new baby. Thus, at their invitation, people came from far and wide. Among the visitors was a wise old man who came to see the prince from his home in the mountains. So, whenever a new baby is born, we call our relatives so that they can shower the blessings on the baby. In the same way, king and queen called all the family members and friends to see the baby and shower their blessings. And came one old wise man also came in the baby shower invitation from the mountains of Himalayas. Tell me, said King Suddhodana, what future do you see for my son? Well, Your Majesty, replied the old man, your son could become a great king one day. I knew it, exclaimed the king excitedly. He will rule the kingdom after me. So, the old wise man predicted the future of this little baby, that he will be a great king just like his father, King Suddhodana. And after listening this prediction, the king was very happy, and he said that my son will rule the kingdom after I die. On the other hand, continued the old man, he might also choose to leave the palace and lead a simple life, devoting himself to helping others instead. The old wise man also predicted that this baby may also leave the home and live a very simple life, just like a monk, wherein the motive of his life will be to help the people in need. He will do no such thing, retorted the king. He is going to be a king like me. After hearing the second prediction of the old wise man, King Sudhodana became little angry and said that my child will not do any such thing. He will just be a king and a true king like me. The young prince grew up, surrounded by luxury. One day, when the prince was 7 years old, his father sent for him. So, when the prince was in his growing age, King Sudhodana provided him all sorts of facilities so that he gets in habit of living the life within the comfortable zone. As our parents gave us all the things that we need, in the same way, King Sudhodana also provided all the necessary things which was needed by Prince Siddhartha. And when the prince grew up at the age of 7 years, he was asked by King Sudhodana to go for a training which a prince should take in order to become a good king and a great king. Siddhartha, he said, when you grow up, you will be the king and rule our kingdom. It is now time for you to begin your training. Siddhartha began his training. He was taught how to ride a horse, how to shoot an arrow, how to wrestle and use the sword, all the skills that a warrior king would need. So, a proper training was given to Siddhartha to become a true warrior and a great king. Siddhartha learned his lessons well, as did his cousin Devadat. The two boys were about the same age, and King thought that they would be good company for each other. Every day, when his lessons were over, Prince Siddhartha would go and play in the palace grounds, where many animals were to be found. A pair of beautiful white swans nested in the palace lake every year. He liked to sit and watch them. So, after the training of the day was finished, Siddhartha used to go to the garden and used to sit there and spend some time looking at the animals and the birds. Every year, a pair of beautiful white swan used to come and stay there in the lake of the palace. One evening, Siddhartha saw three beautiful white swans flying overhead. Suddenly, as he watched, one of the swans fell to the ground. Oh no! Cried Siddhartha. What can have happened? So, all of a sudden, Siddhartha saw one of the swan had fallen down, and Siddhartha was confused that what might have happened, what caused the fall to the swan. Siddhartha walked very quietly to where the swan lay and began to stroke it gently. An arrow was sticking out of its wing. Now, when Siddhartha approached the swan, he saw that an arrow was stuck in the wings of the swan. Now I understand, said Siddhartha softly. Someone has shot you. Very gently, he removed the arrow. He took off his vest and wrapped it around the swan. I will look after you until your wing is better, he said. Just then, he heard a voice. Where is it? I know it must be here somewhere. I saw it fall. It was Devadat, Prince Siddhartha's cousin, who came running up, carrying his bow and arrow. Now, who had shot the swan? It was Prince Siddhartha's cousin Devadat. And after shooting the swan, he was in search of the swan also, which was uh, taken care of by Prince Siddhartha now. Siddhartha, that's my swan. I shot it. Give it to me, he demanded. You can't have it, replied Siddhartha. It is a wild swan. It does not belong to you. The two boys began to argue. Stop, said Siddhartha. This is not helping. Let us go and ask the king and his wise ministers to help us settle this matter. Now, a small argument took place between Siddhartha and his cousin Devadat, that to whom actually the swan belongs. So, a wise decision was taken by Siddhartha to go to the king and ask him to take a better decision so as to settle the argument. The king and the ministers listened quietly as Siddhartha and Devadat told them what had happened. The ministers shook their heads. They were puzzled. Who did the swan belong to? I think I can help, a voice said. Looking up, they saw the wise old man standing in the doorway. He approached slowly and looked at the wounded animal in Siddhartha's arms. If the swan could talk, said the old man, it would tell us that it wanted to be well again and be free to fly and swim with the other wild swans. None of us want to feel pain or die, and it is the same for the swan. It wants to live, so it should go wherever whoever wants to give it life. So now the king and ministers were not able to take a decision, so the old wise man came in and gave the decision. He said that every one of us want to get well and do the things according to our wish. So let the swan take the decision and go to the person who would like to give her life. Let it be so, said the king. Siddhartha shall keep the swan. The king thanked the wise old man for his advice. All this time, Devadat had stood silently. He remembered how kind his mother had been when he had once fallen and had badly injured his leg. He had bandaged the cut and looked after him. He had never before stopped to think that animals too had feelings, that they felt pain and appreciated kindness. Now Devdutt also realized the pain that Swan was going through, and he recalled one of the incident where he had fallen and how his mother took care of him. Now he learned through the incident that animals too feel the pain and they appreciate the kindness. Devadatta felt very sorry for what he had done. Siddhartha and Devadatta decided to take care of the swan until it was well again. One evening, when the swan's wing was completely healed, they led it down to the palace lake. Just then, they heard the familiar sound of beating wings overhead. Look, Siddhartha, the other swans have come back for her. They set the swan free. Soon, the swan rose up in the air to join her friends. She circled the lake one last time, as if to say goodbye, before flying off towards the mountains in the north. So, when the swan was completely fine and the wing got recovered, Prince Siddhartha and Prince Devadatta both went to the lake of the palace and set the swan free. and they could also see that the other swans had come to accompany this swan who was injured. So, the lesson that we learn from this story is that we should always be kind towards the animals and never hurt them. Hope you all might have enjoyed this story and might have learned a valuable lesson. Thank you for watching and have a great day.